My guest is Sammy Kershaw. And Sammy, when I first saw that name on a record, I immediately thought of the Kershaw brothers, Rusty and Doug. Are you related to them?
Yes, sir. We're third cousin, and we just found this out just a couple of 3 months ago. How close or how far? We always knew we were kin, but we didn't know how close or how far.
Is your act a Cajun act?
No, we're country, but we like to have fun. We're all over the stage. We have fun with the people, and we have fun. We're Cajun people.
Do you? Yeah, and most Cajuns that I've met love to have fun.
Yes, sir.
Full of vim, vigor, and vitality. And I used to play records at night for Cajun people and down around Big Mamu, and Thibodeau.
Yeah.
And they love steel guitar.
They do, and fiddle. They love steel and fiddle.
Do you play fiddle?
No, I can't play any. I'm not a musician. I can barely play rhythm on guitar. Really, it's not me. I'm not a musician. I consider myself an entertainer.
Where are you from?
I'm originally from Kaplan, Louisiana.
Is that in the middle of the Cajun country?
That's right in the middle of the fee-fan-fon, right back there where there's...
In the middle of the what?
The fee-fan-fon, we call it. There's no electricity out there. There's, no plumbing, no nothing. I spent most of my childhood back there in the swamps, fishing and hunting with a lot of kinfolk around Forked Island and Cow Island and Pecan Island. And it's a good place to live. It's a good place to grow up. It's a sportsman's paradise. There's not a whole lot of trouble. So I had a good childhood.
Is the fee-fan-fon the backwoods?
The backwoods, yeah, the swampland. There's not much there except trees and water and
snakes,
alligators and snakes and duck and geese.
Do you speak French?
And Tibrin, a little bit. I can understand more than I can speak it. Like when I go home and all the older people talk to me in French, I can understand what they're saying. Sometimes I can talk back to them, but sometimes there's words that I just can't find in French to speak it all the way.
Did you grow up in an English or French-speaking family?
Both. My mother and father, my dad, both of them, they spoke French and English. But when it got to my grandfather and my grandmothers and all that, they were all French-speaking. And I remember when I was a boy, right after my dad died, I used to go and stay with my great-grandmother, my dad's grandmother. And every morning for 4 months, I'd wake up and she'd ask if I wanted some confiture. And I'd tell her no, because I didn't know what it was. And about 4 months later, I asked my mother what confiture was, and she said it means preserves or jam. And I'd been missing out on 4 months of good stuff, So I learned how to understand a lot of it from then on. Missing out on a lot of good things.
Big hit record, Cadillac Style. Tell me about that song, Sammy.
Well, Cadillac Style is, it got pitched to us over at Mercury from a guy named Mark Peterson.
I know Mark.
Who plays guitar for Shotgun Red.
You're right.
And he sent it over, and Buddy listened to it, Buddy Cannon, and Naro Wilson, and they sent it to me in Louisiana because I was still living down there then. And when I listened to it, the first time I listened to it, I said, man, I called them up right away. I said, are y'all sure this is for me? And they said, I'm telling you, this is for you. I wasn't hearing it because I've always been one to try to stay in the ballads, And they said, just give it a chance. When we come up to do the album, just go in the studio and try it out. If it works, we'll do it. If it don't work, we'll get rid of it. But when we got in there and the musicians laid the first track and I sang it and they played it back, I said, yeah, man, this is for me. Because I learned a whole lot about listening to songs. Because what I would do was listen to the demo. I wasn't necessarily listening to the song itself. And then once I heard myself singing it back and what they could hear music-wise, well, the song was a totally different song to me then. And I could pretty much relate to that song. You know, it's not what I have or what I don't have or what I do. My little baby still loves me Cadillac Style, the best that she can love me, you know.
Give me some more lines from that song.
I ain't Burt Reynolds and I ain't Tom Selleck. That's the line that really threw me for a loop when I first heard the song. I wasn't sure about it, you know. I said, well, these guys are not even on TV anymore. I don't know if people will remember them. And then I turned the TV on one night, and I'm watching Burt Reynolds on a sitcom he has every week, and it's a major hit, and I didn't even know he was on. But I don't get to watch TV much anymore, and but that worked out okay, you know. And I got bills up the pike, and my car's an old relic. I mean, well, I still have some. I mean, not as many, but I had a lot of bills up the pike. I mean, just way up there, and that's been like that all my life. I've always had to be a survivor.
Sammy, how well did the record do?
It went to number 3, and I was hoping for a top 20 song. When they released the song, I said, well, this is the first one, and if the good Lord will just give me a top 20 song, I'll be happy with the first. And then right before Christmas, it was sitting on number 5, and it had been out there for so long. I said, well, as it froze at 5. I said, well, as soon as the freeze is off for Christmas and New Year's, the song is going to fall off because it's just been out there too long. And then that first week the charts came back in, it jumped to number 3, and I was really excited then. And then the next week it stayed at 3 again, and that really surprised me. And then when it fell off, it fell to number 4 first, and then it finally started working its way down. And I saw the chart last week before last, and it was still at like number 25. That's really wild.
Oh, it's hanging on.
Yeah, it is. And then last week, I think it came in number 1 on the recurrent list. So I guess you could call it a signature song, you know.
Oh yes,
and
for you it is.
That it doesn't happen very often for a new artist to have your first song a signature song. I mean, we do a lot of in-stores and stuff, and you'd be surprised how many little bitty kids will walk up and say, there's the Cadillac Man, there's the Cadillac Man, you know. So I'm probably going to be known as the Cadillac Man for
quite a while.
That's fine with me.
Sammy, do you write songs?
Well, I don't. I try to stay away from the writing. I don't put a lot of time in the writing. If I'm sitting there and a song pops in the head, I'll write it. If I can do it in 15, 20 minutes, I'll do it. But if I have to work at it, I'm not even going to bother with it, because I think there's too many great songwriters out there that can just sit down and just sit there and just write a story that I have lived, something in my life. And I don't have to worry about writing songs anywhere. There's so many great songs out there. I don't see why any artist, can't go in the studio and put 10 great songs on an album. A lot of times, you know, I'll go buy an album, there's 2 or 3 good songs on it, and the rest feels like a filler to me. Well, I don't like that too much, and so that's one promise I always made myself. If ever I got the chance, I'm going to search and find the 10 best songs that we can find at that time. I'm not going to save 2 or 3 songs for the next album or none of that, because there's always enough great songs going around. And hopefully, like I said, I'll leave that songwriting alone. Hopefully the songwriters will leave the singing alone.
Sammy, how many songs are in the Don't Go Near the Water album?
10.
Now, when you were putting this album together, how many songs did you consider before you narrowed it to 10?
Well, Buddy Cannon and Norah Wilson, they're great. I mean, great song people. I think they were telling me between 700 and 800 songs. And then they narrowed it down. They kind of weeded out the stuff that didn't fit me. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say bad songs, because, you know, we had a lot of great songs, but they were just looking for things that would fit me. And I guess they came up with like 70 or 80 of them that I ended up listening to. And if I felt that something didn't fit me, I'd just call them up, and they said, okay. But if I didn't think it fit me, and I called them up and told them that, and they really felt strong about the song, They said, well, now let's just give it a chance. Live with it just a little bit longer and see. And probably 8 of the songs that I didn't want to cut, were really great songs. Just like there's 2 songs on there that I decided on, and one of them was Every Third Monday, which is a cheating song, and there's not that many cheating songs anymore. And one of my heroes was Mel Street, and I think he had some of the greatest cheating songs I ever heard.
Yes, he did.
And he had to be one of the nicest guys that I ever met in the business. I mean, I was a young guy, and he met me one time, and we became friends. And the next time I met him, he was still nice to me, And every time after that, he was always nice to me, and it amazed me because I met so many people in the business. The first time I met them, well, they were nice to me. And the next time I met them, they didn't even know who I was. You kind of had to refresh their memory. But Mel Street wasn't that way at all. He remembered you. And, another guy like that is Steve Wariner. And T. Graham Brown's another one.
Yes.
They've always been nice to me every time they met me.
You picked some good ones. They are great people.
They are. They're nice guys, and I like that,
I'm visiting with Sammy Kershaw, and I'm reading from the People magazine. They reviewed your album, Don't Go Near the Water. George Jones' bar stool is a mighty big one to fill, but this 33-year-old Louisianan may be the guy to do it. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's a compliment myself. If I was a baseball player, if somebody wrote, well, I compare him to Babe Ruth, you think it would make me mad?
No, it shouldn't.
No, sir. And just like, George Jones, I think he's the greatest country singer. I mean, he's just got that natural tear in his voice. When he sings, it sounds like he's crying. And it all comes from the heart, and that's where I come from. Just like going back to songs. If I haven't lived the song, I'm not going to cut it. I don't care how good it is. You can send
me...
Well,
now, wait a minute, Sammy.
I've lived them all.
You'd have to live an awful lot to live all these songs.
I've lived them all. Every one. Every one of them.
Sammy, do you have a Cadillac?
Yes, sir.
Did you have a Cadillac before you made a hit record?
No, sir. No.
Did you feel like you owed yourself a Cadillac because of your hit record Cadillac Style?
No, Cadillac, I wasn't even going to buy a Cadillac. I mean, I didn't even buy this Cadillac. If it wouldn't have been for Cadillac giving me the car.
Oh, they gave you a car?
Yes, sir. First, they gave me an Elante, a Cadillac Elante. But it's one of them 2-door sports cars, and it goes about 180 miles an hour, and that's not for me. I probably wouldn't have lasted very long. And usually, my wife drives the thing anyway. I probably put about 30 miles on the car, and that was it. But there's only a 2-seater, and there's 4 of us at home. So usually when the car went to town for something, somebody had to stay home, and it was usually me, unless I wanted to ride the hubcap or something, But we decided to go ahead and trade that thing in, and now we have a new Seville, a 4-door Seville.
Why did the Cadillac people tell you they were giving you a Cadillac?
Well, I did some commercials for Cadillac, and for a region in Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and some in Florida and South Carolina, and we're trying to turn it into a nationwide thing, and it's just about there. And they thought I could sell some Cadillacs by doing commercials, and according to the sales reports that we've been getting back the last month or two, all the states that the commercial ran in, the Cadillac sales were up to 75%. So, I'm not saying I'm the one that did it, I know what Cadillac's done for me. Some of the best exposure. There's not a new artist in the world that can buy that kind of exposure. I mean, within a week, I was known all over in Oklahoma and Texas and Louisiana, everywhere. And all winter long, I've worked. I've only been home 10 days in the last 4 months. And I've worked because of those Cadillac commercials.
Well, don't you think a lot of it is because of the hit record Cadillac Style?
Well, sure, but I mean, the commercials and TNN and CMT got the face out there with the video and stuff. And it kind of it gives you an identity right away. And that's something years ago it was hard to get that. And today I think that's one thing about video that I like a lot. You know, it puts your face out there, and the people hear the song, well, then they know who's singing it.
This dream of his has finally been realized at the age of 33, a dream that's 21 years old. That means you started dreaming this dream at 12.
That's right.
Tell me about that.
When I was, you see, my dad died when I was 11 years old of lung cancer. But I mean, it all started before that. My mother used to sit and rock me when I was 2, 3 years old, and she'd sing these old Hank Williams Sr. songs to me. Well, I thought the songs were great, but it sounded like my mother had a little more of a natural tear in her voice than old Hank did. I mean, when she sang, it was like she was crying. And then I heard that again when I turned 5 years old. I heard George Jones sing, and man, it just moved me. You know, I felt that as a kid, and I knew then that that's what I always wanted to do. Well, when my dad died at 11, right after that, my mother arranged for me to go to work with a man back in Louisiana by the name of J.B. Perry. He had the hottest country band in the region, and he said, "Sure, I can find him a job." She was afraid I'd get into some kind of trouble, and she's probably right. That's where I was headed, because I didn't care anymore. I mean, hell, there's my dad just died, you know, and it was kind of a pretty rough deal for me, because he wasn't always very nice to me, and I always wished him dead. And then one day he up and dies on me, and then that's something I had to live with for a long time.
You feel guilty?
Yeah, I did for a long time, till I was about 22 years old, and then I finally realized he'd have died anyway.
Sammy, what other kind? So did you sing from the age of 12 till the present time?
Yes, sir. 12 years old, I started playing nightclubs 4 nights a week.
Did you get an education?
Yes, sir. Finished high school.
Did you have other kinds of jobs along the way to sustain you?
Oh, man, I've had many. I've worked in a rice mill, a welder, a carpenter, a disc jockey for a year.
Where were you a disc jockey?
In Kaplan, Louisiana. They were opening up a new radio station there, and I had just moved back home. I just went through a divorce in Oklahoma. I had been there for a little over a year. So I moved back home, and right across the street from the house, they're opening a new radio station, and I needed a job. So I went over there and did a tape for them. I did a read for them, and I had to fill out an application. They asked if I'd ever done it before. I said yes, I had. I'd done it in Oklahoma, and I did it for a couple of years, and it wasn't true, but I got the job, and I had a ball. That's one of the funnest things I ever did.
What kind of a disc jockey were you?
Country disc jockey.
Whose records did you play?
Conway and George. This was 10 years ago. Eddie Raven, when he first came out. George Strait was just really kicking in then.
I guess a young Reba McEntire?
Yeah, Reba.
Barbara Mandrell?
Barbara Mandrell.
I'm thinking back to the acts that were very hot in those days.
Yeah, there was a bunch. Eddie Rabbit.
Well, this was before Alabama, wasn't it?
Right before Alabama. I was working there when Alabama broke.
Were you a good disc jockey?
I was great.
Did you have a lot of listeners?
I had a bunch. I had a bunch. It didn't matter to me if I only had one. I didn't care.
You were having a good time.
Exactly. I have fun. I have a lot of fun with everything I do.
Sammy, thank you for being my guest. I appreciate you coming by and talking to us.
Well, I thank you for having me, and it's nice to sit down and talk to one of the greats in this business.
Well, you're very nice.
Thank you.